Welcome back to Frenemies, the podcast about B2B SaaS, marketing, sales, and everything in between. Today, I'm joined by Deivis to talk all about paid media strategy, the part that nobody can live without in this day and time. Hi, Deivis.
Hey, everyone. And thanks for having me here today.
Very glad to have you on. So a bit about you, Deivis. You have your own agency, DERU Digital, where you
Yep.
help lots of B2B and B2C clients on their paid media needs. So, of course, lots of demand capture going on, but also demand creation, demand generation, which we're going to
Yes.
dive a bit into. So yeah, let's get straight into it. How do you get started? You get a new client, and yeah, where do you start? What do you look at?
Yeah, well, first of all, I probably start with a lot of questions. I ask a bunch of questions to clients about like what's their budget, what do they currently run, what is the performance, and then a bit more about like the average deal sizes, the sales cycles. So I need to have the full picture before I can suggest anything. And most important question is it B2B or is it B2C? Because based on that, I will probably choose different channels. But yeah, I would start with a lot of questions to get as much information from them as possible. Also, what's their ICP? Everything, as much as they can give me, basically. Then ideally, they would also give me some sort of demo tour so I can understand the process of how people get onboarded or sign up for demo or whatever that is. Because then I also already start to think about, okay, what do I want to track? But usually in the sense of actual paid media, I usually will try to start with demand capture. I think everybody would do that. Mainly that's going to be Google search. And I would start with most likely high intent keywords. And that will give me an idea of, well, first of all, how expensive the industry is. Of course, I'm going to get some knowledge beforehand when they tell me what's their average deal size and sales cycle, because the more expensive the deal is, the more expensive the industry is, usually. But yeah, that's going to give me a general understanding of how expensive it is to pay for the click, how expensive it is to get the lead, how often can I get the lead, how much traffic there is. And that's one of the most important things, right? I want to see if there's enough traffic, because if I'm given a budget, let's say 5,000 euros, but I cannot even really spend it on Google because people are just not searching for it, then I immediately start thinking about demand generation. I had a client where we tried out Google, of course, at the beginning, but it's just that their niche was a bit too unique, and they basically had to borrow the traffic from other, not industries, but like related products, and obviously people were not converting as well. So I suggested just to go on LinkedIn and spend the money there, and then start creating that whole framework with retargeting layers and whatnot. But usually starting with Google search, seeing how much demand we can capture, adding some retargeting, probably on paid social, where mainly I would start retargeting website visitors, and then we'll see how that goes before we extend, basically. And it's also really budget dependent. The bigger the budget, the more room you have to play and test. So yeah.
Yes, that's how it is with paid media managers. Having managed some of them, it's normally you keep them happy by giving them a big budget to play with.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, the more budget you have, it's you don't even have to just play in your usual LinkedIn and Google and Facebook. You can start exploring Reddit, Twitter, in some cases. So yeah, it's quite
X
fun.
now.
Ah, of course, of course. Well, maybe not X, because I just read an article that 22% of marketeers are not gonna be are gonna decrease or even cut advertising on X for some reasons. So.
But as you just mentioned, Google Ads and the demand capture part. Two questions or two thoughts I have related to that. The first, as you said, of course, that is very dependent on, there is actually demand to capture. So do you base this on the brand keywords or product keywords? Is this like kind of how you build your baseline to see what are the general numbers of how expensive a click is and how where conversion rates are at, and all of these important numbers to then scale it up from there?
I base it on generic. So brand for me,
Okay.
for brand, I don't know, like it's gonna be usually super cheap, so I'm not gonna base it on I'm not gonna base the how expensive the industry is based on brand terms, basically. But brand terms give you an indication how many people already know you and are searching for you. So that's a good one. But in general, I would base everything on generic keywords, for sure.
Okay. And my second question is, of course, as you said, you kind of take a stock of what does it look like, the process to sign up for a demo. And of course, there's a lot of things connected to it. As for example, what does the landing page look like, or the pages you want to send traffic to? So there's already a lot of thoughts you need to have in that as well, right? To even assure that there is a proper conversion from the ad to the goal you want to achieve, right?
Exactly. I can give you an example. I had a call at the beginning of the week. I think no, actually on Friday, with a potential client. So they asked for help, and I thought that they are a bit ahead of time in terms of they want to run ads without having a proper website in place. So they did have a website, but when I looked at it, the sign up process. To give you an example, for them to sign up to become a client or a customer, you would click on a sign up button. Then there's a form that you download, a PDF form. You need to fill it out. You need to send it back to some email, and then they review it, and then you can start all of it. For me, that's
Yeah.
insane. I would not do that at all. I suggested them as a bare minimum, add some form to fill out, then you create some email automation, send out that form, whatever they need to fill out, because it's related to finance, so they know your customer stuff. And then do that. At least capture them, because then you send them the email. If they don't respond, you can still reach them again with a follow up and whatnot. Because I told them 95% of the people are gonna bounce. They don't have time to download something and then send it over, and you will never be able to reach them again. Basically, of course, unless you run retargeting campaigns, but the main thing would be to capture them. If they're ready to sign up, and you don't capture their contact details, I mean that's not great. So they said, okay, we need to think about all this stuff before we run out. It's yep.
Yeah, not even just kind of the process to the sign up, which obviously is really important, especially for you, because this is of course also where you get the ROI and you can see where to spend next. But also just talking about the next step in the process, I have run this test several times of how the conversion rate is from lead, like high intent lead, like yes. Demo request, to a booked meeting and further through the pipeline, based on how fast the sales team reacts. And even though and I did this test, split out by channels where the traffic came from, but also then just looking at organic. So people that clearly came to your website with the goal, okay, I know them, I have researched them, I want to get a demo. Even there, you can see dramatic differences in how many of those convert into a meeting, based on when reach out. So these things are so important, and I think a lot of companies forget of how many factors actually go into it, even though people are ready to buy. But they still have other priorities. They still have a lot on their table, and they're not going to wait and sit around for a company to, as you say, download a form and send an email and do this. No, we all want it super easy and fast, right? We all are under pressure.
Exactly. Exactly. Now it has to be so easy and seamless. I mean, we are living now in a time where our attention spans are 3 seconds, and a slow website is not gonna cut it. No forms, like everything, right? So even when even on my website, for longest time I had just a form to contact me, and then I realized after they contact me, then I send them an email, let's schedule a call, and I was like, I'm stupid. Why don't I just embed the Calendly form there as well, so they can immediately book me? And obviously, more meetings booked. So now I have a little bit more meetings than I used to have for potential clients. And that's with everything, right? So everything needs to be fast and seamless.
Yeah. So you already mentioned how you look at demand capture and then demand creation. So demand capture is mainly Google Ads, and then for the demand creation part, when you start an area for a client of yours, what are the platforms you're looking at, and how are you building the demand creation ads app, and with what goals?
Yeah. So mainly, if I look at B2B, of course, that would be LinkedIn's platform. So I would start everything there. But I would, of course, need to talk with the client on what kind of content they have, because you would show different pieces of content at different places of the funnel. But basically, you would start out with cold layer, meaning you go for awareness. So the goal there would be to look at the frequency, how often the ads are shown to the audience, how big the audience is, your reach, CPCs, basically everything related to engagement and video views for that matter. Because then you start to understand what resonates, which ads resonate. So you can start adjusting the messaging, adjusting the banners, creative part, and also start excluding some job titles perhaps or some industries. You can see in the demographics that some of them are not engaging, but you just spend money on them. And then also you would look here how quick and how expensive it is to build that first retargeting layer. So you start with awareness, and then you continue with other set of campaigns where you nurture them, which also have different types of content there. So let's say you have white papers, you have testimonials, case studies, basically social proof and thought leadership. And so you look also there, you look at engagement rates basically. And then the third layer, the final one, that's where you can start thinking about cost per lead, conversion rates, and the goals would be then, of course, the end goal is accelerate pipelines, so getting as many leads and opportunities through this paid motion. But the goal is one thing, and then KPIs is different. So for the whole funnel, the goal would be, of course, getting revenue, but the KPIs at different stages are slightly different. Yeah, I think that would be how you would look at it, or how I would look at it, basically. And then I would look at also when I'm looking at leads, right, at the last stage, I wouldn't just look at the last stage cost per lead. I would use the whole funnel's cost when I calculate cost per lead or cost per opportunity, MQL, whatever those next stages are.
Yeah, so as you just said, of course, the demand creation process consists of several layers of campaigns with different goals, different assets. And of course, especially in 2023, the problem is that actually, generating those leads that your clients can work with takes a long time. And sales cycles are even longer. So how do you align with your clients and set the expectations there? Because of course you must, you must give them some sort of expectation of when can they actually receive the first leads, and what do you base that information on?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I have they're not a client of mine, but they asked if I could do something for them. But then when I started this conversation of, yeah, you have all these stages before you can start converting, they were not that happy about it because they don't have big budgets, and they are super conservative on spending. So they want to have first results as soon as possible with minimum investment, which everybody wants that. So
yes.
I did write, I did write them the proposal of, listen, I mean, it probably is gonna take you from the first touch to like a demo request up to like 3 months, depending on how much you invest, how expensive is the industry, because it's the longer it takes to populate at least that first retargeting layer, the longer it's gonna take you to see the results. So sometimes I don't offer, or I don't even suggest demand generation. I mention it, but I talk a lot about let's run. I mean, I don't like it a lot, but I would start running lead gen straight away. Just lead LinkedIn forms, so they start capturing some leads. So there's a little bit of trust that or something tangible for them, that they see, okay, we can generate these leads. And then I have the next, I would say, okay, we're getting these leads and they're not converting as good, because they don't know you. We haven't given them anything useful, or yeah. So if you want to have better conversion rates, let's go with the demand generation. It's gonna take us a little bit longer, but eventually it's gonna be cheaper to close the deals than what we're doing right now. So you need to some sort of hook or some sort of something to like to gain trust, to show them something tangible for the first like 2-3 months, and then you can start convincing them with the demand generation. Some companies like understand it straight from the beginning that, okay, yeah, that's understandable. We're ready to wait 3, 4, 6 months till we see something. So it really depends on the client. Usually it's always easier to work with the ones that understand these kind of things, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's not only for the paid media area, but I mean, I experienced the same as a marketing leader, right? In all of my last companies, it was always a process to get to demand generation and get away from the lead generation part, because of course it's difficult for leadership to trust in it if you haven't seen the results. So also at my current company, when I started, I had to do the lead gen part to get to the demand gen part, because of course you need to live up to expectations and deliver, but also then for me it's a good trade-off to do this kind of 50-50 and then scale the lead gen part down, because you can prove more and more why demand gen is the way forward and why you need to focus on actually creating the demand. But it takes time to build this up, and a lot of times the idea of waiting 3-4 months is really, really scary, because of course you need a consistent flow. But you're of course also building the future. You're building the future demand. You're building what's coming in. Well, I mean, now we're already looking at Q1 kind of, right, for anything that starts now.
Yeah, 100%. No, but I definitely agree with you, and I think the ones that are sitting in a companies where it's super hard to convince their managers or their leadership that demand generation is like good for them, I would say, well, just take proportion from your demand capture budget and slowly build that up. Like take at the beginning 15%, then 20%, until you can prove or show something for that demand generation side. Then like all they care about is, can you prove me, right? So you need to take a little bit. You cannot start you can start allocating 50% of the budget to it, because I mean, what they're gonna see is that in their Salesforce or whatever, they now see 50% less leads and 50% or 100% more cost per lead. What the hell is going on? Where are our leads? Like we need sales to be calling them up and whatnot. So you take proportions. You start small and then you build it out, and have something to show for.
And you just mentioned that basically you would be looking at LinkedIn. So I didn't hear Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and all of these exciting things that also get talked about a lot. Would you choose LinkedIn as a first layer because it is kind of predictable, and because it's the easiest, most understandable go-to, or why would you base it on LinkedIn first?
Because of the targeting. So let's say you start with your website visits. So you take everything, Google, organic, whatnot, and then you use that audience, and then you can layer on top of it job titles, industries, companies, whatever you want. It's just it's more predictable, and yes, LinkedIn is more expensive than Facebook and Instagram, but you pay for the targeting basically. So for Facebook, like if you have excess budget, then go for retargeting. And if you have even more budget, if you definitely have exceeded the Google search and LinkedIn, then you can start opening up to the broad audience. But for B2B, it's just LinkedIn is just the go-to in most cases, right? Just makes a lot of sense.
And, when I follow a lot of B2B marketing media, I'm under the impression that any company needs to be on TikTok. So when is it that you would advise a company to go all in on TikTok ads and dabble in these more exciting platforms?
Then B2B, I mean, it depends, because technically I'm B2B as well, right? So I'm trying to get the clients. I'm trying to get the clients. So it really depends on what your offer is. for me, it makes sense that I would go on TikTok and try to reach that audience. So I would start spreading some knowledge about paid media, basically. And most likely I would get something out of it. If you are advertising, I don't know, windmill consultancy services or whatnot, is TikTok the right channel for you? I mean, you can try it out. I mean, it could be interesting. You could show your expertise in that area. But is your ideal customer there? Like, I'm not that sure. So I would, and then especially with ads, again, that would be my last thing to test out before I would nail Google, LinkedIn. Probably then that's actually a good debate between Facebook and TikTok. Actually, it might be the same pretty much.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, for B2C, definitely. I actually they're kind of B2B, B2C. So they help out both of these sides. But I multiple times have told them, like, try TikTok. I mean, I think it could be good for you guys. Take some influencer, and yeah, it would be great.
I mean, for me, it's always when building a marketing strategy, and looking at all channels overall and platforms. For me, it's always about what are the platforms where we actually have the team and the capabilities to build the content, not only for paid, but also organically. So, a lot of times I have chosen not, like, for a company not to be on TikTok and not to make ads for TikTok, just because we wouldn't be able to do this on a consistent level. And I mean, that is in the end where growth always comes from, that you have consistency and that you keep going. So right now TikTok is super fast living. It moves on super fast. So you also need to push a lot of content out there to get the awareness, to get the visibility, and to actually get the ball rolling. So far for me, it hasn't really, taken it where I thought, okay, let's invest full on in this, on top of, LinkedIn, where it's also already like quite something. And of course, there's a lot of smart tools where you can, repurpose and create content in different formats. But still, it is a lot of work, especially for a small team as I have, to create all of the content, all of the visuals, and so on.
Yes, so there are 2 points that I hear. First of all, yes, definitely the purposing would be one way to approach these different channels. I mean, usually, you have a sort of like a pyramid of content. So you have a long form, and then you start piecing it together. So you use, let's say, this podcast, for example. Out of this, there might be an article that you could create, upload just a simple post. There could be a snippet that you could upload to TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts for that matter. And a little bit longer something could be uploaded to LinkedIn. So definitely need to repurpose longer pieces of content. And then second thing is about the team. Definitely you can kind of maintain being present in the platforms, but you're not gonna be growing or nailing them. So one approach would be, so if I would be some sort of marketing leader, I would build out one channel or one platform till I see some sort of success, then hire someone, put it there, go to the next channel, build it out, hire someone, and just step by step because I mean, just hiring a TikTok specialist before you can see that it actually can give you something, it doesn't really make sense. In my opinion, you could try out with some agency to like give them like 4 months or whatever it takes. I'm not a TikTok specialist to get results. They could probably assist you in that. Because I mean, why people hire agencies is like they don't have time, resources, and well, it's easier to get out of agency than to get rid of an employee.
Plus, I mean,
that.
for me, the way I built my marketing teams, I don't like the idea of having one person in charge of one channel. First of all, just thinking about the person's growth, they might be really into TikTok and loving it, but are they gonna love that long term? No. So they're gonna want to grow, and then I have a TikTok specialist and a Reddit specialist, and then nobody can kind of move on from there. So I would rather have, somebody that like is really into content creation and can cover several platforms. But at the same time, for example, now I just mentioned Reddit, but also like, when I worked in IT security, like we did Reddit, but also it needs, I feel like somebody that's dedicated to actually engaging with the audience there, because Reddit is such a different platform. The format is so different. People actually engage in in-depth conversations. So if you choose to be there and advertise there, you also need to ensure that actually is somebody that can engage with users there and answer questions and get into it, because else again you're not seeing value from whatever you're putting out. And I feel like it's difficult because to then like get them on other platforms, right? Because everybody has their own likes. There are reasons why people are on Reddit and not on X, and so on and so on.
Definitely.
We already talked about retargeting, or you mentioned retargeting. So first of all, actually, do you make a distinction between nurturing and retargeting?
That's a good question. No, because for me with that first retargeting layer, I do nurture. So for me, that's kind of the same. It's kind of like nurturing for me. Retargeting is more technical term, but the nurturing is what do you really do there with that retargeting layer. So it's kind of the same, but at the same time not. Then you really put me into
I don't think
tricky
there's a
here.
right or wrong answer, but I think I agree with what you just said, and that's also kind of how I think about it. Retargeting kind of just implies, okay, those are people that have in some sort of way already engaged with you, like your company or your website. So this is not a completely cold audience, but intent obviously is unknown. It is unknown how aware they are of solution, problem, and so on and so on. Whereas nurturing is more the activity of what do you do? Well, you educate them, you bring them useful, engaging content, so they stay connected with your product and keep on learning.
Yeah, 100%. I never had to stop and think about it a bit. But yes.
So how do you
exactly.
approach retargeting? Like, kind of, what are your go-to tips for retargeting campaigns that really pay off and bring in that revenue?
Yeah, well, at the beginning, I try to build an audience for not everything, but for a lot of things. I would try out to build out general website visitors for like the last 90 days, LinkedIn company visits for the company page visits for the last 90 days. Then of course different ad interactions. So I wouldn't bundle them all together, not necessarily. So I would so let's say I run 3 different campaigns. So I would want 3 different audiences to see which one is building me the audience. In that next layer, I would use all of them still, most likely, but I still want to separate them out. And sometimes I've done in the past also where I do UTM based. So if I want to create an audience based on if they came from Google, for example, because then I want to see also in the demographics if they can match it to see, okay, what kind of traffic am I buying from Google right now, and then retarget them. Pricing page visits, so basically your high intent pages from the website. Those I would maybe try sometimes to create a separate targeting audience for that. And then of course you start to create another retargeting audience based on your nurture layer. So people who interacted with that case study, with the testimonial, white paper, and whatnot, because that's essentially what you need then to move them further down the funnel in terms of ads. Basically that. I mean, then you can play around with different time frames. You can say, so for some audiences is good 90 days. For some, maybe you put in 180 days. Some are 30 days. So it's, for example, the cold layer, I would build them for like 90 days. And then if they interact with one of the nurture campaign or ad, I would create a 30-day hard push retargeting layer where I bombard them with request a demo or contact us or fill out a form or whatnot. And if within those 30 days they don't interact or they don't fill out anything, they would go out from that layer, from that hard CTA layer, and I would, depending on the budget, maybe I would put them in a low budget kind of top of mind, let's say, layer where I would essentially use, if we talk LinkedIn, some text ads, some spotlight ads, where I basically would write there something about what we offer. So what the same, pretty much what the same what you use in your cold layer. So yeah, I'm a marketing agency. We can do ads for you, for example. So yeah, different ways how you can play around with them, right?
Yeah, I mean that's the difficulty in all of this. The sky's the limit, right? And it oftentimes depends so specifically on the company and I mean the specific solution and audience, right? And of course, the more creative you can be, the more it's gonna pay off because I mean everybody is on LinkedIn. It's expensive. You're really competing each other, so that's why why I also want to have you on to give your expert advice because we all need to get more of our investment these days. So talking about
Yeah,
expert
definitely,
advice,
definitely.
what are your paid media tips that more people should know?
Okay, I have one is super huge is that please try to use offline conversions, especially if you run Google. And by offline conversions, I mean what you send back information, what happens beyond just a lead, your MQL stage, your SQL stage, your opportunity stage. Please send it all back to Google so you can optimize better the campaign. So Google takes that information into account as well. Um, Based on that, also track as much as you can. You can eliminate the conversion points later on if you think they're not relevant, but it's better to over track than not tracking at all. There's so many companies still out there that don't know how to set up tracking properly, so they don't track leads, for example. Like it's insane. If you don't track the lead, you don't even know how they progress further down the funnel. So the lead tracking is like the bare minimum. Um, to figure that one out. I have kind of a hierarchy of importance on different channels. So, for example, on Google, the first most important thing is data. So that comes back to all the conversion points that you need to track. Then it's the keyword slash campaign structure that you need to keep in mind. Then it's the bid strategy, and only then it's landing page, and then the ad copy. Like for Google, ad copy is kind of like it has to be relevant to the keyword, and people are gonna click. So I would put ad copy to the end in the hierarchy of importance. For let's say for LinkedIn, the main thing is targeting. So targeting the right people, and then messaging and creative, because that needs to match obviously your targeting. But if you're offering marketing services to, I don't know, engineers, if you're targeting engineers, that doesn't make any sense. And then for Facebook, the most important thing is the creative, because apparently Facebook's algorithm is not smart enough to figure out who to show your ad based on what you're putting in the creative. So people use just broad audiences in the targeting,
I
and it
think this is
works.
already really
Um,
interesting because, at least in my experience, I said this a lot of times already, but in marketing and B2B companies, one of the difficulties of my area is that it's a very visible part. So everybody can see the ads and everybody has an opinion, right? Doesn't mean that it's always qualified or strategically founded opinions, but everybody has one. And I see it exactly the same way as you. A lot of times the messaging is actually a lower priority because obviously the messaging should be relevant, but I haven't seen many cases in which the messaging wasn't relevant at all. But a lot of times it is an area that a lot of other people focus on. So they see an ad and, they give feedback on like the messaging or the visual. But the other parts are so much more important for what actually comes out at the end of the day than the actual messaging. Also, because as we said already before, the attention span is so low by now. Like, people don't sit around and remember a message from an ad they saw for 3 weeks. I mean, we all would wish that was the case, but it's not. It's not.
yeah, not at all. Like if you look at specifically Google, right? I pretty much I don't even read those ads. I'm like, okay, is it? But I'm also because I'm a PPC specialist, right? I actually don't click on ads. I scroll a bit down on
Except
the
for
ad
competitors. I
usually. I
always
don't know
click
why
on
I do
competitor
that.
ads.
Maybe I think it's yes, yes, of course. But I barely read the ads. For me, it's like, is it relevant? I mean, but the only thing that, I mean, I'm doing the same thing, but sometimes it pisses me off. I write in some company name and then I see 3 ads. Oh, it's not the company name. So competitors are bidding on their terms, and their writing is like, I know what the company does. So that competitor puts the same things in the headline. I'm like, okay, this seems like it, and I'm like, nope. So protect your brand. Bid on your brand.
But so what is your personal standpoint on competitor ads? Do you run them for clients, or when is the point where you advise competitor ads?
Yes, always.
Okay.
I mean, why not? Some I've actually, I know that some actually, when I worked at Site Improve, my manager back then said that she's, if as long as I don't tell her that I'm running competitor ads, she's fine, because she didn't really like that approach. I was like, I don't care. It's like, we can get some
I've
extra
just
leads
never
from there.
seen
Why not?
the return on competitor ads. I've never seen them paying off.
Oh, I mean, Momondo, when when Kayak was acquiring us, when Kayak told us we are not gonna bid on brand terms because it's waste of money, even though it costs you 3 cents. And then in Germany, actually, we showed them that term Kayak was the most profitable term in Germany from PPC. And based on that, and that was a lot of money. And then based on that, they agreed that, okay, we can bid on our own brand terms.
Yes, but that
Or
was
did you
just a
ask
little
about
throwback.
competitors?
So just for context, Davis and I used to work at Momondo 100 million years ago when we were young and poor, and
Yeah.
yeah, started our careers out.
Yep. But I mean, back then, for Momondo, Kayak was a competitor, and we had a lot of money there, and then they didn't want to bid on brand names. But yeah, I can recommend. I mean, if it's not performing, you can scale it down. But if it does perform,
Yeah.
it's great.
Okay.
I mean, some of those competitors have done maybe the heavy lifting of demand generation. They're looking for them, but then they might click on you and maybe they convert.
Yeah, I mean, I
So
think
why not? Look at the data. With everything, it's the same with generic keywords. I mean, not everything's gonna be performing. So I treat keyword competitor or generic just the same. Like, if it
Yeah, and I
performs,
think
it performs.
especially for competitor ads, it's even more important that you know exactly the layers you explained, or the criteria on how to optimize Google Ads. I think that's even more so the case. So you want to make sure your landing page is performing and is very easy to consume, read, and sign
Oh
up,
yes.
because you don't want to waste people's time that were looking for a specific company on something that isn't relevant to them. So I think the relevancy needs to be even higher to get enough out of it.
I usually, yeah. Usually, you would, I mean, in ideal scenario, you would have some sort of competitor-specific landing page where you compare yourself to the competitors, and don't just create a table yourself, but use something like G2 or other review sites where it's proven that you are better than your competitor. Because I mean, if you fill out your own table with
It's not only
information, that's
biased.
a bit
Actually, there
biased.
are cases in which it's not legal to do that. So also be careful when doing that. Obviously, referencing sites,
Oh,
as you're saying, is a very great way to do it. But there are rules on also
mhm.
if you can use your competitor's name and so on. So yeah, be a bit cautious, everyone out there, but be smart about it.
Also true.
Okay, any other paid
Yeah.
media tips you have for us?
Actually, one that I started to think about a couple of months ago already is, when you're trying to advertise something, when you just start to think, would I click on it? Would I convert? Would I buy this? And if you go into the more complex scenario with retargeting layers, you could still apply the same thought process. Would I eventually become a customer if I would see these ads, if I would see all of this content that is presented in front of me? If the answer is no, then you need to change something. So think more from your own perspective than just, I need to launch these layers, I need to run these ads. And yeah, some people just never think about, would that even really convert? So people just advertise for the sake of advertising. And then based also on top of it, if if you would specifically for Google, if the company would now tell you, okay, next month we will use your own salary on paid ads on Google, and you will get the profits of it, will you then bid on the same keywords that you're doing right now? If the answer is no, then you know you can start pausing some stuff. Of course, I'm not gonna go into like attribution and whatnot, but on the surface, when you see the keywords, when you see the performance as it is right now, would you continue with it if it was your salary on the line? Probably not.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases. So yeah.
I think those are great
two
tips. And it's not that I'm disagreeing with you, but I would actually say a lot of times people should think less of their perspective. And what I mean is a lot of times, and it of course depends on your target audience. If you yourself are a marketer and you're targeting marketers, sure, think of your own perspective. But I feel like too many people that work in marketing think of how they look at ads and think that the audience looks at the ads in the same way. And it's not about you. It's not about, if you like something or dislike something. It is a lot of times is something simple enough. Can everybody understand this? I think things need to be way less concrete than people think. A lot of times people try to be very extra complicated and very specialized to show that they understand their audience. But again, our attention span is really limited. So you don't want to have 5,000 very specific industry keywords in there, because even industry people don't want to read them. And also, I've done a lot of tests also on visuals and how they look like, because our company colors is very like bright blue, which I really, really love. But I've compared visuals in this bright blue that clearly is an ad to visuals that are more trimmed down and actually use white instead, and then just, logo and stuff like that. And actually the ads or the visuals that looked less like ads and more native performed better. So it's also this like over visualizing part. I mean, we all are used to seeing so many ads. So a lot of times standing out is actually fitting in.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, for quite a while now, the trend is some people are now, it's kind of like the best performing ads are the ones that has the lowest kind of like quality. So basically you just record yourself, for example, and you run it as ad. It just seems more natural. Even if you look like at companies like I think it was Wix, that somebody just recorded a dude who started to get sales from his Wix website. That's about it. And I saw that ad a lot, meaning that it performs, right? Maybe more because it's more relatable, easier, and then people just engage with that more. But then there are cases, of course, where super visual is so appealing and it just stops the scrolling and you're like, whoa, what is that? So yeah, it's marketing is so much that you can try out, and new kind of trends come up. I mean, even if you think from B2C perspective, it's still super popular to use user-generated content because it seems natural and native and relatable. But then I'm starting to see people talking about that. Yeah, that's not good anymore. So you should scale that down, and there's a new way of advertising products, and because UGC is now oversaturated, so everybody using that. So I mean, we're trying to outcompete everyone else all the time. We're battling for that attention in marketing. So yeah.
I mean, that's why we're still at it, right? Because there is not one right answer. It always is about the specific cases, what fits the specific scenario, and so many other things around. But I have one more question for you, and that is, of course, how do you collaborate with sales?
Sure.
So both when you worked in-house, but also now, like with your client's sales department, like how do you make sure that is aligned? And they have a proper lead handover and they know what kind of leads they're receiving.
I will be completely honest. It's not that I've been involved in-house a lot with that handover, but I would say I have three kind of examples. So two of those are going to be from previous clients and one existing client. So one was I had a weekly catch up with a client and their sales team. So we were basically running the Google ads and we're getting signups. But we on a weekly basis discussed the quality of them. So how many were good, how many were maybe fake, because then I would know what to scale down, which ad groups, which campaigns are not performing. As an example, I tried out Performance Max. That was last year. It recently came out. I was getting a lot of leads. I was like, nice, cost per lead is down, everything is awesome. But at the same time, I was cautious. I was like, that seems too good to be real. So I urged the sales team to even send me notes on almost like a daily basis to tell me, okay, I've got like 30 leads. Are any of them good? And then, of course, in a month, we basically stopped Performance Max campaign because 98% of them were not good. And we started to spend a lot of money on it. So that interaction, that conversation with them helps a lot to nail down on what is performing and what's not performing. If I would be just someone who is running ads for them and just optimizing for conversions, that would be so much waste. And the results then were that when I worked with them for a couple months, we got down the cost per SQL dramatically by like 35 or 40%. So optimizing for the right thing, right? Then for another client that I'm working now with, I have HubSpot access. So there's a bit of unique story there because they have, it's not their sales team, it's their small startup right now, and they have partners who are the sales one, but we both use HubSpot. So then I know the status of the leads. So they update it regularly. So if they contacted, like if they progressed, what's going on, and then I can see which channels are performing better or worse right now, or which ad groups, because HubSpot has all the tracking there. But when it comes to in-house, when I work, then that can be tricky in big organizations. So these were examples where you are a smaller organization, so you meet up with sales teams, but when you work with, like, let's say you're like 500 or 1,000 employees, it's a bit hard to, when I was like just a performance marketing manager, I didn't talk to sales that much. So we had country managers, we had demand generation directors, whatnot, and they all are talking about this kind of stuff. But that alignment is so crucial. It's insane. I had a case where country managers created their account-based marketing list, and then sales had a different one. And there was miscommunication. So I, of course, advertised for that list. Nobody followed up with them like they were supposed to be followed up on. I didn't know that, of course, but yeah, it can be a mess. And then also some people think that ABM is just, you run ads, you have a list and you run ads to them, but it's a much bigger motion than just running ads to. It's the whole sales process, the whole outreach, you tailor content for that, you tailor events or webinars or whatever for that. It's way more that you need to take into account than just a list and running ads. It's basically, then if you do that, it's basically simple demand generation motion with just a company list.
100%.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So,
but I also think, from my experience, specifically for paid media, working together with sales, I found that, a lot of educating helps as well. Because, of course, sellers don't know how the different platforms work, what targeting you can actually even set up. And not that they need to know the details, but I found that it was really great to actually say, listen, this is actually the targeting that I can set, so I can only do that much. And there are always going to be leads that don't fit 100% into this box. Not all of them are going to be, directors of IT. They're going to be other job titles as well, because it just doesn't work to only target this niche group. It's not going to do the job. And that really helped the way forward for them to also understand, okay, why are the leads not always exactly how we want them to be? And that is, of course, because marketing and paid media is not a magic trick where you just pull exactly the rabbit out of it that you want.
Of course. Yeah, we just want our ICP, we want directors, we want them to request the demo, we want them to sign up themselves, and I just need to send them a contract. Of course, everybody wants that. But no, of course, there is to be, as you mentioned, some education on how these platforms work, and that's why we measure the funnel based on conversion rates, right? So obviously not 100% are going to be your deals closed. Yeah. It just doesn't work like that.
Thanks so much for sharing all of your insights, Deivis. If you want to follow Deivis, then I'm going to link his LinkedIn profile in the description. And you also have a fantastic paid media newsletter on
Awesome.
LinkedIn that you send out every Monday. So that one I can also really recommend following. It's a really nice overview of kind of everything in the area that has happened over a week. So sign up to that. And yeah, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks a lot for having me here. It was super nice.